Hello everyone, welcome to Bobby D's Reading Room. I'm Bobby Deluxe. This is my reading room. Today's story is... Well, actually, I'm trying something new today. Hope that's alright. I am going to try my hand at a review, if you don't mind. One of my reading goals for 2025 was to get through all of Shakespeare. All the plays. Now, I've read a few. I'm not an idiot. I've read the mainstays, the greatest hits, but this year, I'm going to get through all of them, no skips, and I thought, what better place than here to talk about it? So I'm diving in at the very beginning where it all started. Henry VI, Part 1 from 1591. The first part of Shakespeare's collection of 4 plays, Henry VI, Parts 1, 2, and 3, along with Richard III, otherwise known as the Henry VI Tetralogy. Tetralogy. Now that's a great word. Wait. What? Shouldn't I start with Hamlet, Macbeth, the Teenage Lovers, Lear? You know, the popular ones? Shouldn't I be trying to grow this podcast? Yeah, well, maybe. Unfortunately for me and for the algorithm, Shakespeare didn't write the popular ones first. What a jerk. And we're going in order, damn it. So I know what you're thinking. Henry VI, Part 1? Isn't that one of the ones that every self-important Shakespeare snob says that it's 100% okay to skip? Skim the Wikipedia, tell people with a straight face that you'll get to it someday, and move on with your life? Isn't it one of the regulars at the bottom of any I'm smarter than you list of all Shakespeare's plays ranked? Even the most ironic literary hipsters don't have the guts to put Henry VI Part 1 in the top 10, let alone top 5, could you imagine? Alas, Henry VI, Part 1, is near unanimously way down there in the damp cellar collecting mold with King John and Pericles. Is that fair? Well, maybe not. But I think it's time to shine some light on this oft overlooked and dismissed play and give it some... Perhaps love is too strong a word. How about a slight head nod and a pat on the shoulder? That feels appropriate. Let's do this. Henry VI, Part 1. Thum. 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 Hung be the heavens with black, yield day to night. Comets importing change of times and states, brandish your crystal tresses in the sky, and with them scourge the bad revolting stars that have consented unto Henry's death. King Henry V, too famous to live long, England ne'er lost a king of so much worth. And so begins the first play Shakespeare wrote. And yes, more on that later, and no, this will not turn into a deep dive into the whole Oxford thing. Act 1, Scene 1 of Part 1 throws us headfirst into the messy aftermath of Henry V's death. The king is dead, baby. Gone is the charismatic warrior king, and England is left to pick up the pieces while at war with a rebellious France. Henry V was not struck down by an adversary, not fallen in righteous battle. The real Henry V got sick and died at only 35 years old. Whether or not it was dysentery, smallpox, infection, or leprosy, ultimately doesn't matter for our play. The powerful king is replaced by his infant son, who would grow into a weak-willed boy ruler. The play explores the power vacuum created in the loss of Henry V, whose ghost seems to haunt the narrative. If only he hadn't died, none of this mess would have happened. Of course, what becomes is a breeding ground for ambition. We see scheming nobles, ruthless bishops, and everyone jockeying for position. It's a fascinating look at how political maneuverings and backstabbing can quickly destabilize even the most powerful of nations, as this play serves as a prologue for what would become the War of the Roses. No, not the film with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. One of the play's most striking contrasts is between the true heroes, like the fiery Talbot and his valiant son, their scenes being the best in the play for my money, and the manipulative dukes and ambitious bishops. Talbot, a man of action, embodies a more traditional notion of heroism. This dude is going to fight the French with a sword in his hand until his dying breath. Yet his actions are ultimately overshadowed by the political machinations of those who remain safely at court. Typical. And then there's Joan of Arc, Wait, what, she's in this play? Yeah, I didn't know that either. I thought it was pretty cool to find out. Anyway, she is not presented as the French heroine here. She's the English's enemy, and she's a badass. She's a scary one-woman army delivered by the hand of God with a single-minded mission to slay as many Englishmen as possible. Shakespeare presents Joan as a formidable force, a woman who possesses a drive and passion that utterly confounds the English. Faced with this powerful, unconventional figure, the male characters can only explain it in one way. She's a witch, a demon, obviously, duh. They resort to the age-old tactic of demonizing Joan, labeling her a witch. It's a fascinating reflection of how society often reacts to women who challenge traditional gender roles and wield power. How dare she? About Joan's final scene, boy, some people don't like this one. Sure, it can be read that Joan is weak, denying her father and feigning pregnancy in her final breaths. Ignoring the English propaganda that is built into the play, Shakespeare allows Joan a moment of humanity, in my opinion. Facing a horrific execution, Joan initially resists, but ultimately decides to play into the political games, trying to beat her captives at their same game, feigning submission to save face because getting burned alive sucks, no matter how divine you may or may not be. So if Joan could find a way to talk her way out of that, and find a way to perhaps keep stabbing the English, it makes sense to me. The scene is a poignant reminder that even the most defiant can be broken by the weight of circumstance. Lastly, I want to talk for a moment about the play's authorship. There's been much debate about whether Shakespeare wrote it alone or if others contributed. The arguments are broadly as follows. On the Shakespeare wrote it himself side, proponents will say, hey look, it's right there in the first folio, written by William Shakespeare, can we move on please? Or they'll just say, read it, stupid, it's clearly what we know of as a Shakespeare play. The style, the themes, the wordplay, the vocabulary, it's all there, raw as it may be. Ah, yes, others may say, so you agree it's inconsistent, therefore it must be a collaborative effort. You're telling me that the same guy who wrote those scenes with Talbot and his son is the same guy who wrote all of the boring scenes of all the dukes scheming and playing politics, especially at a time where collaboration between writers was common? Okay, that's enough of the hypothetical back and forth. My opinion, honestly, I think it's a bit of a moot point. I know a little bit about being a beginning writer, and the truth is, you don't know what you're doing. You're learning, you're trying things, you're finding your voice, and you borrow, intentionally or not, from other writers, the acceptable phrase being inspired by. As for part one, it's fun for scholars to debate, and currently the emerging consensus would indicate academics are getting more comfortable with the notion that Henry VI Part 1 was a collaborative work. Who wrote what and who wrote how much of that what? Who knows? Ultimately, we may never have the absolute proof one way or the other. I say may, but realistically, we're never going to know. Regardless of who wrote what, King Henry VI Part 1 endures. It may have the hallmarks of a young writer's work, lots of battles, perhaps a bit over the top in places, but it's undeniably Shakespearean in its exploration of power, ambition, and the complexities of war. So there it is. Henry VI Part 1, a messy, ambitious play that deserves a closer look. Part of the reason for its poor reputation is that it's rarely produced. It exists well enough as a standalone play, but you can't really have Part 1 in the title and not have plans to mount all three, plus Richard III, and if you're going to put up a history, you're going to do Richard III by itself. You know, the winter of our discontent and all that. Plus, look at all those battle scenes. That's an expensive production for a play nobody likes. And since you can't have a review without breaking it down to a final subjective rating, I'm going to go with, how about 3¼ stars for Henry VI Part 1 by William Shakespeare and maybe some other people. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed our time together in Bobby D's Reading Room. If you did, tell a friend and invite them to join you next time. We never close. Until then, ta-ta.